Hi guys, it's Heidi here from Heidi Helps, the Philippines Made Easy, your dreams made possible. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get step-by-step guides, insider tips, stories from foreigners who have lived vibrantly here in the Philippines, and basically learn about the culture of the Philippines and anything under the sun to show you how beautiful this country is. Today we're going to talk about the 13A marriage visa. So what is the 13A marriage visa? This 13A marriage visa is basically a pathway for you to get permanent residency here in the Philippines. So if you're married to a Filipino spouse or planning to get married to a Filipino spouse, this is the perfect visa for you. There are many benefits in getting the 13A marriage visa. One of which is it gives you permanent residency, meaning you won't have to renew your tourist visa. It gives you multiple entry and exits here in the country, meaning you won't have to show a return flight when you're coming back from the Philippines. You won't have to file for an exit clearance anymore if you've lived here for more than 6 months. So there's definitely a lot of perks in terms of having the 13A visa. Another perk is basically it gives you time from lining up at the Bureau of Immigration to extend your tourist visa. This means that you won't have to visit the Bureau of Immigration every 2 months. Other long-term benefits are you could basically open a bank account, get your driver's license, be in our PhilHealth system wherein you can get discounts when you have hospital bills, and basically just the security and peace of mind of having a permanent residency here in the Philippines. So there is a difference in terms of applying for a 13A marriage visa when you're married outside of the country and if you were married in the Philippines. This is because there is one very important document that you need to get, which is the PSA marriage certificate. Now, if you were married outside of the country, you can basically apply for the 13A marriage visa at the Philippine embassy nearest you. However, if you're planning to apply for the 13A after your marriage, make sure that you've declared your marriage at the Philippine embassy. This is for us to make sure that you have your PSA marriage certificate. Now, if you were married in the Philippines, this is easy because the civil registry of the city where you were married basically reports your marriage to the Philippine Statistics Authority. That's where you can get your PSA marriage certificate. So when you're applying for the marriage visa, just think about what are the requirements based on where you were married because this does affect your application. I do recommend if you were married outside of the country to just apply at the Philippine embassy nearest you. But if that's not a possibility, we can also apply for the 13A marriage visa in the Philippines. However, you just need to declare your marriage at the Philippine embassy. So what are the requirements of getting the 13A marriage visa? The first requirement is the most important requirement, which we discussed earlier, which is the PSA marriage certificate. This PSA marriage certificate or Philippine Statistics Authority marriage certificate is basically a declaration here in the Philippines or a record here in the Philippines that your marriage was actually done. So this is a document proving that you're actually married. Next is the PSA birth certificate of your Filipino spouse. So this PSA birth certificate and the PSA marriage certificate are actually documents that you can order online, or you can also get it at your nearest Philippine civil registry. Next is the NBI clearance for the foreign spouse. So this is done at the National Bureau of Investigation where you're gonna have to do your fingerprints and photo capturing just to make sure you've been a good boy or girl here in the Philippines and you don't have any pending cases. Next is your passport, of course, and 2 valid IDs from your Filipino spouse or their passport. Other requirements are just paperwork that you can get from the Bureau of Immigration and you can fill those out. So what's the process like for the marriage visa? So the marriage visa is basically a 2-tier process, meaning you have to apply twice for this. The first application is basically your 13A probationary, which is valid for 12 months. The technique here is 9 months after getting this approved, you can basically apply for your 13A permanent to get to your 13A permanent visa. So just make sure that before your 13A spousal visa expires, you can apply for your 13A permanent visa. So once you're at your 13A application, the requirements are the same, but the additional requirements is you have to issue an affidavit of cohabitation, meaning you have to say that you have been living your spouse for that entire year of the probationary period. So the requirements from 13A probationary and 13A permanent are basically the same, and the application process is the same per application, but this assures you that you will get your 13A spousal visa with less hassle. Just make sure you have all the requirements necessary for the application. And also, don't let your 13A probationary expire without applying for the 13A permanent, because this will mean that you're going to have to apply again. Okay? So what are the common questions asked about the 13A spousal visa? One of the most common questions asked is, can you leave the country while applying for the 13A spousal visa? The answer is yes. You can definitely leave the country once you've submitted all your documents and you're just waiting for the approval of your 13A. However, if your visa gets approved while you're outside of the country, you might have to apply for a revalidation, which might lengthen the process of your visa. I definitely recommend staying here in the country and waiting for your visa to be approved so that there won't be any problems or additional steps that you would have to take in order to get your 13A approved. So again, you can leave the country, but there are consequences to it. So definitely, I recommend staying here for 2 to 3 months until your visa is approved. Next question. Can same-sex marriage couples get a 13A spousal visa here in the Philippines? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Since the Philippines doesn't recognize same-sex marriage yet, this allows same-sex marriage couples from getting the 13A spousal visa. Last question. What happens if your spouse passes away or, say, God forbid, you break up, right? So since the 13A marriage visa is dependent on your marriage to your Filipino spouse, if, for example, your spouse passes away, this will directly void your 13A visa. So meaning you'd have to downgrade and go back to having a tourist visa unless you have a child together. So if you have a child together, you can continue your 13A marriage visa. So say, for example, you break up with your spouse. This also means that your 13A will not be valid anymore. This is because your marriage or getting the 13A marriage visa is dependent on your marriage to your Filipino spouse. So if you have any other questions or concerns about the 13A marriage visa, feel free to leave a comment below and we'll make sure to answer them. If you need any help with immigration or business services setup, feel free to check the link below for my company, CNG Consulting. I'll see you guys again soon for other information about the Philippines. Bye!